The next team that we'll be looking at is going to be Rajasthan Royals. So Rajasthan Royals, the main thing about Rajasthan Royals this time at the auction was Kumar Sangakkara, who looked like he just stepped off a transcontinental flight where he had flown in coach. He was seated at the back where the restroom is and where the seat doesn't go back, and he was seated next to a bowling baby because he looked absolutely sleepy, irritable, and just he wasn't there. He was quite a sight. I think he came into his own on the second day, but first day he was just absolutely out of it. So the Rajasthan Royals again is a side which started off their IPL with like this famous victory, but over the years it also I think also has underperformed. Again, I don't think that in comparison to Punjab Kings they've underperformed. They've always kind of been a top 4 contender, but you never think that they're going to win the tournament. So this time they have chose to retain Josh Butler, Jaiswal, and Sanju Samson, with Sanju Samson as the captain. It made sense. This was, again, I'm not too sure about Jaiswal, but Butler and Samson were obvious retentions. I mean, they decided to let Jofra Archer go because of his injury problems. So Ben Stokes wasn't going to play IPL, and Mumbai Indians bought him. This possibly might be one of the most controversial buys in IPL history, buying Jofra Archer when he's absolutely injured. But let's see how that plays out. For those of you interested, there's a Mumbai Indians analysis. There's another video that I've done. So given that Butler, Jaiswal, and Samson have been retained, let's look at their 11. So Jaiswal is an opener, left-handed, I'm guessing will open. Now this is where the first doubt comes in. Who's going to open with him? Because they also bought Padikkal. And Padikkal is also a left-handed opener who's not extremely aggressive. So the other guy has to be Josh Butler, because Josh Butler as an opener versus Josh Butler anywhere else, there's a huge gap. There's a huge gulf in performance. I mean, Josh Butler is your star. You want him to play from ball 1. So the way I would think if I was a Rajasthan Royals fan was that I want Butler to play as many balls as possible, because he's like head and shoulders above everybody else. I'm trying to think, is he the best T20 batsman at this point of time? I would think so. So Josh Butler has to open. Now, who opens with him? Is it Jaiswal or is it Padikkal? Because they need to play both. I mean, of course, the amount of money they spend, they have to spend to play both. But again, this is the problem. I'm going to come to it. They already have, 3 openers for 2 slots. So I'm going to go with Jaiswal opens, Padikkal comes in 1 draw, which again, I think is not the best place for somebody like Padikkal. And the next guy who comes in is Sanju Samson. I think Sanju Samson is also batting not at his best spot. Sanju Samson, I also feel, is much more effective as an opener or at 1 down. But Padikkal can definitely not bat 2 down in a T20 game. So this is the way it's possibly going to be. Then the next, it's going to be Hetmyer or Van der Dusen. I'm going to go with Hetmyer. It's going to be first choice. And then if he's not injured, if he's injured or something, then it's going to be, who goes out of form, then it's Van der Dusen. Then you have Riyan Parag. This is again where I'm not too sure about Riyan Parag. I mean, I think Rajasthan Royals have kind of done the Kolkata Knight Riders thing, got him back in at quite a significant price, and they've gone all in on him. They trust him, and that's good for the player. But Riyan Parag hasn't impressed, I would say. He's played like 20 odd innings for Rajasthan Royals, and he's a strike rate of about, I think, less than 120. And an average of about 16 or 17. So is that a good, is a strike rate of 120 good in today's T20 for somebody who's coming 5 or 6? And the average is not important because, the guy comes with a few balls, that shouldn't be the metric to judge him, but the strike rate is, right? So I'm not sure that I can see, I'm not particularly happy about their finishing here. Then then again, there's an overseas slot where it's either going to be Jimmy Neesham or it's going to be Nether Coulter-Nile. They're very similar in many ways. Sometimes I forget who's who. But, fairly decent all-rounder. Then they have Ravichandran Ashwin. Then their last overseas slot goes to Trent Bolt, obviously. They have Chahal and they have Prasidh Krishna. So positives, this is a solid Indian spin bowling. I mean, you have Ashwin and you have Chahal. Wow, that's a solid spin bowling attack, I would say. As The problem again is, again, I'm going to come to problems. Let's look at the good points first. So solid Indian spin bowling. And you have Joss Butler. Joss Butler is the god of T20 cricket. A huge fan of him. And I think he's the kind of guy, and if he's in form, he will get you to the top 4. He's that kind of a guy. But again, which comes to the negatives, is there's too much pressure in the team still on Butler and Samson. And that's been their essential problem. And I was hoping that they would solve this problem this auction, but they haven't. It's still a very Butler and Samson. Butler Samson goes, I mean, you sit down to Hetmyer. Hetmyer is a support cast, I would say. It's a good support cast. I mean, in Delhi, he played well because of that kind of top order that they had. But is he going to really step up here with Hetmyer? Because I mean, he's not playing in T20 for West Indies. So I don't know if it was the injurious because it's a performance thing, but it's not, I would still say he doesn't really walk into the West Indies side anymore. So I'm not sure that without a Butler, and Butler again, it's the England problem. If there's an England series, and Butler is not going to be playing. So that is, I guess that's when Jaiswal and Padikkal will open. But Jaiswal and Padikkal opening is a weak opening batting. They're both left-handers, and none of them can really power through, I believe. So what I think might happen is, and the essential problem is, I think they selected 4 openers. They have 4 openers and 2 openers. There are only 2 people who can open: Jaiswal, Padikkal, Samson, Butler. They're all best when they play as openers. And so what might happen is, if things are not going well, they might have to send Butler to number 4, because there's going to be inexperience with Riyan Parag, and that's not the spot for Butler. They've tried Butler there, and I don't think that Butler has to open. They have to play the maximum number of balls. Their pace bowling, I mean, you have Trent Bolt, of course, as their kind of spearhead, and fairly successful in Mumbai Indians. He wasn't that great for Kolkata Knight Riders. So there's an element of management, and some players play well in a very good team, but they don't play that well in a team which is not that good. So I don't know how Bolt is. But of course, he's a great bowler. He brings that left-handed bowling, and he has Yorkers. He's fairly solid guy, and pair him with Chahal and Ashwin. That's a fairly decent attack. And then you have Nathar Coulter-Nile. But again, the Indian pace bowling, it's Prasidh Krishna. They spent a lot of money, too much money on Prasidh Krishna. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get trolled by Prasidh Krishna fans, should they exist. But I, as a Kolkata Knight Rider who suffered through Prasidh Krishna is going to have this one day when he'll get 3 or 4 wickets, but he's going to leak runs at 10 runs and over. So Prasidh Krishna is for me, I mean, I was very happy that KKR got rid of Prasidh Krishna. Now, it could be that Prasidh Krishna goes to Rajasthan Royals and becomes a superstar. I don't know. That's happened to us before, Surya Kumar Yadav. But Prasidh Krishna doesn't inspire confidence in me when I look at this attack and see who's going to lead the fast bowling department with Trent Bolt. I mean, Trent Bolt can bowl great on one end, but who's going to be the other guy at the other end? Nisham and Nathar Coulter-Nile aren't like A-grade bowlers. They're not spearhead bowlers, right? They're the bowlers who come in after the second rung of bowlers, because they're all-rounders. That's where I think the Rajasthan Royals is going to hurt. Prasidh Krishna. So points, how much would I give them? I would give them, again, 6.5. I would give them 6.5. They had a decent auction, nothing spectacular. I think that they did not understand the weakness of their team, because this team is basically the same as the team that they had before. I think Hetmyer is a good buy. Van der Dusen is also a good buy. But again, they need somebody after Butler with that level, with that stature. And I think they spent a lot of money on Ashwin and Chahal, which is good for them. I mean, they wanted to totally revamp their bowling, and they have in a way. But then they went all in on Prasidh Krishna, which I think might come to haunt them later on. Maybe they won't, but again, as a KKR fan who suffered through too many Prasidh Krishna overs, thank you, Rajasthan Royals, for taking him. And now moving on to the next franchise.